Welcome to the Leadership Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jono White. I'm the founder and principal consultant of Clarity. We are an Australian-based consultancy that works with leaders around the world, and our passion is to invest in people to become everything they're meant to be in order to fill the world with healthy organizations that people love to work for and customers line up to buy from. The goal of this podcast is to invest in you and your leadership. If you're just joining us for the first time, then feel free to check out consultclarity.org. That's our website, consultclarity.org. We have so many free resources on there, the most popular being our 7 Questions on Leadership series. We've had more than 1,500 leaders from around the world in all different sectors give their in-depth answers on leadership, what books they love, what they found most challenging, the most meaningful stories, how they structure their time through the day. That's free, so go and check it out. And we'd love to interview you about your leadership. I believe you have advice from your experience, your context, and your life so far that is important and can help other leaders. It's also a great way to give back. It's free to get involved, and you can do so by going to consultclarity.org/7-questions-interest, or just Google consultclarity.org 7 questions interest and fill out the form that pops up. We have a free resource for you on our website. It's called Leadership Survival Guide. It's a 57-page ebook. It has interviews with 10 world-class leaders, and you can go to consultclarity.org. It's right at the top, and get that today. We also have a daily email that we send out to over 15,000 leaders, and that email contains the highlights, our best content from our podcasts, our blog, my book, the books that we're loving that are out there about leadership. It's also the best way to get access to our masterclasses and workshops before anyone else. And there's also exclusive and limited special options just for subscribers. And you can subscribe by going to consultclarity.org/subscribe. Now, my gift to you is to work incredibly hard to provide the best leadership content I can to invest in you and your leadership. So if you're finding our content helpful, if you find this podcast helpful, then your gift to me could be this. If you do find it helpful, then write a review or rate our content and make sure you subscribe or follow. I can't emphasize enough how helpful that is. It really does help us to get the word out there so we can invest in more leaders to become everything they're meant to be. It also means a lot to me personally when people like you and people in our community share our content on social media. So if you do that, then please do look for me, Jono White, to tag me, and look to tag Clarity on whatever platform you're on. And our team, including me, I'm always looking to see when people have mentioned us so that I can engage with you. And also we look at sharing content. So if you write something about something we've done, there's also a good chance we'll share that with our followers. So if you could do that, that is a massive, massive help as we try to invest in as many leaders as we can around the world. Last of all, you can check out my book about how to deal with difficult people even if you hate conflict. It's called Step Up or Step Out. It's available on Amazon. You can just look up Step Up or Step Out Jono White, or you can go to store.consultclarity.org/book and check it out there. I have coached leader after leader after leader, and in more than 50% of the sessions, this topic comes up. How do I deal with this person? I'm finding it really difficult, and I just want to find a way that doesn't blow up to just to have a difficult conversation, to lead them better. How do I do that? There's a 3-step process that I outline in this book that I believe can help you. Okay, let's get into today's episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast. Enjoy. Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast. Today's guest is Curt Sassak. Curt is a former chef turned LinkedIn coach, and I'm really looking forward to this chat. I'm a big LinkedIn fan, and it's probably my favorite social media platform, really. So I think that might be one avenue, but more importantly, I'm interested in talking about Curt. So welcome to the podcast, Curt.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
As I said, I'm a big LinkedIn fan, but I know you wear a few hats with what you do as well. So just give our listeners a bit of an idea of what you do at the moment.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Can you tell our listeners a bit about what you do?
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't quite make it out. Yeah, so yeah, as you said, I'm a former chef turned LinkedIn coach. So here's a little bit of backstory, which will help explain that. Prior to the pandemic, I started going on LinkedIn again. After like 10 years of like never being on it. And I went on. I was reading messages from like 2012 that I never opened. So, but then the pandemic hits, and I realized that you know, everything can go south literally overnight. And I, like a lot of people, always only had one job and one source of income. And I still have a job, but my salary was cut because COVID hurt our business. And I thought, I mean, you can't be blamed if something happens to you, but you can be blamed if you have not put yourself in a position where you can protect yourself. So from that point, I realized, you know what, I need to brand myself. I need to take steps to make sure that no matter what happens with the economy or the world or whatever, I have financial freedom and stability. So that really started my journey 2 years ago into just learning
Wow.
everything I can about branding myself and using LinkedIn as a vehicle to do that. So I've spent for the past 2 years about 3 hours a day on LinkedIn. I've taken a few courses, and so I got to a point to where I was like, I don't want to brand myself as a chef or a spirits and wine guy because that's the industry I work in now. I thought back to my pain point, which was I don't know how to do this whole social media thing. I don't know how this works. I don't even know
Yeah.
where to start. So I thought, I want to help people do that, because also LinkedIn is the best social media platform when it comes to converting leads to clients out of any of the platforms. So at any rate, to get to close that answer, um, after all that time, I realized, I'm in a position now where I can teach. So I coach people. I help them use LinkedIn to grow their network and grow their business.
Yeah, that's so interesting how you've done that pivot, and or really, I love what you said about okay, we're not what we are responsible for is if we see an opportunity, sort of making sure that we take that uh, and being responsible for ourselves and taking ownership. And I think I agree. I think LinkedIn is a massive opportunity. And I mean, I can't wait to chat about your story in a second, but I can't help but start talking about LinkedIn a little bit because I'm such a big LinkedIn fan. For me, I see, entrepreneurs, LinkedIn is lead generation. For those who are looking for a promotion, LinkedIn is your personal brand. For those who are CEOs of companies with 5,000 people, whatever your focus is, LinkedIn is maybe the opportunity for you to be a thought leader or to connect with thought leaders. It's opportunities for those in business are just, from what I've seen, and to do organically as well, which is what I love about LinkedIn. Other channels, they sort of force you into paid, but LinkedIn, you can do a lot organically.
Yeah, and I mean it's there's 750 million users on LinkedIn, and barely 2% are creating content. So what does that mean? Plenty of opportunities. Think of it as an oil field, but nobody has an oil well. It's just so much ready to be tapped.
Yeah, that's so good. I didn't realize that 2%. Wow. Well, before we get into into more LinkedIn, which we definitely can, and it's great to meet you, and hopefully there'll be a bunch of listeners who this is the timely thing for them to actually get some help with LinkedIn, and they'll come your way, Curt. That's always what I love doing. But I want to find out a bit of your story. So before the pandemic, before being a chef and your other roles, even back to childhood, as you think back, what are some of the moments early in your life that really, I guess, shaped you becoming the person and the leader you are today?
Well, those moments would be my parents because I grew up in a very loving and supportive household. No trauma, no drama. Even when my parents got divorced when I was 9, they put me first. So they didn't, there wasn't like court battles and fighting and stuff like that. They put me first. So well, I'm just the product of a very good upbringing. I mean, we weren't rich, we were middle class. I wasn't spoiled, but I had what I needed. And I've always had, support and love and so on. So I'm fortunate in that regard, because there's a lot of shit parents out there. Um, and anytime I go to
True.
Walmart, I'm reminded why I didn't have kids. And but what's that saying? Walmart is the best form of birth control. Um,
I've
but
never heard, I haven't heard
um,
that.
yeah, well, you have now. So, but
That's good,
anyways,
Kurt.
I'm just the result of two parents who, really put me first and did everything to make sure that I had what I needed to grow up to be a healthy individual. So, I'm lucky. That's really, I think. I mean, I did the work, learning and
Yeah.
you know, and and in my jobs, I've always gotten good reviews on my work ethic and everything. But again, I owe all that to my parents.
No, I love hearing about that because it's I even had a leader recently where we ended up chatting the whole podcast about really the leadership lessons he learned from his dad, and which was just really lovely. And we don't always do that, and there's no plan to spend the whole time there today. But as you think back to your childhood with your parents, and like you said, when so many people don't have, when so many people do have drama and trauma filled childhoods, are there any moments in particular where you remember how your parents managed a particular situation that really stuck with you and taught you a life lesson that you've been able to apply? Like any of those pivotal sort of situations that really stand out?
I can't think of like one in particular where like, oh, I was at a football game and this happened or whatever. It was just more the general, shall we say, for lack of a better term, practices. Like, for example, if I was doing work around the house, my father would tell me, do it right, do it 100% or don't do it at all. So it's not that there was one moment, like you see in the movies where, I don't know, there's a flashback and there's a moment to the, I don't know, the superhero's youth, or I don't know, like that. It was just more uh, just the everyday, the consistency of everyday practices uh, that instilled in me what I am, if that makes sense.
It does. So fast forward, that was obviously, like you said, really foundational for you, and you have to look at that and go, well, that really shaped a lot of who you are, and a lot of the success you've had as well. But as you grew older through those teenage years, 20s, like 30s, early sort of career for you, Curt, are there any moments that stand out that were real aha moments where you realized how you're wired, or where you dropped the ball and made it, as Tim Ferriss calls it, favorite failures, which I love. Like we all have those things that at the time are horrible, but then later on you go, that was pretty crucial for my life, that I did actually realize that from that failure. Like any of those sort of moments in your earlier career?
Well, I started out cooking at 15. I started at Pizza Hut. That doesn't really count, but that's where I started. Uh, and then I just sought out the best places I could work. So there, I'm going to go back to consistency of working for good places and building those habits. I guess one thing that, I mean, I've learned a lot of lessons, but there's one that I remember when I was 22, I was sous chef of a restaurant, and it was a good restaurant, and it was busy. The chef had left or got fired suddenly, abruptly. I don't remember exactly what, but anyways, he was gone pretty abruptly. So me being the ranking sous chef, they put me in charge until they could find a chef. So I was running the kitchen for like a month, and I wasn't taking days off. I was working. I knew the kitchen. I had the respect of the front and back of the house. Whenever I ran the kitchen, everything ran smoothly. So after a few weeks, I went to the executive chef of the hotel, and I said, "Hey, look, I want the job, man." And he said, "Curt, you're not ready." And I was pretty pissed off because I thought, wait a minute, I've been running it for a few weeks. There's no issues. I have the respect of everybody. And I was running the kitchen better than the other dude. And he said, well, Curt, there's things you don't know that you don't even know you don't know. And he said something to the effect that when, it's like giving a 16-year-old a Ferrari. Yeah, maybe they know how to drive it, but they don't really know how to own it and drive it. So fast forward to like 8 years later when I was executive chef in New York City, there was an
Yeah.
issue that happened with an employee, and I handled it well. And I remember sitting in the office thinking, shit, that bastard was right, meaning the other chef, because I didn't like him. I didn't really care for him. He was kind of a shoemaker. Because some chefs, they're good in the office, and some chefs are good in the kitchen, or some chefs
Yeah.
have a good balance. He was neither, but that's why I won't mention his name. But I did learn that fantastic lesson from him, so I'll always remember him for that and be grateful for that. And so, anyways, so I was sitting in my office after that incident with that employee, and I had handled it really well. And I remember thinking, if that was me, if that would have happened 8 years ago when I was the sous chef in that restaurant, I wouldn't have been able to handle it that way. But the thing is, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And you can't replace the maturity that comes with time. So that's probably one of the bigger lessons I learned.
Yeah, that's good. I think there's I think there's a great lesson in there. So this is a question that comes to mind. What did you learn as an executive chef that you've applied in your sort of work in LinkedIn?
Well, I would say my attention to detail and customer service. For example, whenever I get a client,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be with LinkedIn or in any other job I've had, I have personalized cards I bought on Etsy. I mean, I didn't buy those shitty Hallmark things you get at Walmart or, that everybody and their mother can buy. I got something personalized with my name on it, heavy stock paper with the colors that I use, and I got the right color ink. I even went through and tested about 8 different pens till I found something that looked the way I wanted it to look on the paper or on the card stock. And so I send them a thank you letter. I have personalized envelopes as well. And then I melt wax on the back of the envelope and put a seal with my initial, just like, if you remember like the old movies from the medieval time where they used wax to seal a letter. So uh, that attention to detail and that customer service that makes people feel, special. And, that and shows that personal touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that, and I'm a big fan of handwritten letters. So I think that personal touch is so underrated. We focus on such complex things, but that little touch can make such a difference in someone feeling thought of, and it being memorable, and just feeling like, okay, yeah, Curt really does care about me. I'm not just a client. And all you've done is actually taken the time to do something very simple to express that. So I think I can see the connection, because you would, as an executive chef, it must be a job where you get the most transparent feedback, because you're literally finding out like from people. You're watching people consume your product in front of you, and that side of it I've always found fascinating about being a chef.
Yeah, I mean well, in any customer service industry, you're going to get more complaints than anything. But yeah, working in hospitality, I mean, 5-star hotels and resorts are the pinnacle of customer service. So, I could say that I can take those skills and apply them in a way that other people can't. And then, of course,
Yeah,
the other thing I
absolutely.
took from being an executive chef is, when you're a chef, you have to train. And over the years, my training's gotten better, as one would hope. Whatever skill you're doing, you would hope it would get better over time. But one of the things I excel in is breaking things down into easy to understand, shall we say, bite-sized tidbits, more actionable, easier to swallow steps. So in other words, I excel at breaking things down in an easier to understand manner for people to follow, even if it's something complex.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now that makes sense, and I can see how you'd learn that because you'd have to be doing that as an executive chef. So let's talk LinkedIn. First of all, for those listening who have never really lent in to LinkedIn, they've never really given it a go. They're an entrepreneur, they're a manager, they're an executive, a CEO, a head of school, whatever it is. They've never really given it a go. What would be your sort of introduction? I know you mentioned this a little bit before, but an introduction to why most people that you've come across should consider and the potential of what they can achieve on LinkedIn.
Well, a few reasons. One, as I mentioned before, there are 750 million users on LinkedIn, but only 2% are creating content. So you're talking about a wide open field of opportunity. Two, if you take all the social media platforms and you look at the rate of conversion, meaning the rate that you can convert leads into clients, LinkedIn outperforms all the other social media platforms by like 2 to 3 times. It's pretty significant. So, and then another thing about LinkedIn, it's not like Facebook where you don't have a bunch of crap, political or this or that. And I'm fine with getting in a political debate, but on LinkedIn, it's more professional. And another great thing about LinkedIn is this. Some of my
Mm.
clients will say, "Oh, I'm embarrassed. I don't want to shoot a video, or I don't know what to post, or this or that." If you go through and you looked at through LinkedIn and you find people's first post and they'll put something like, "Hey, I'm shy. This is my first post. I don't know what to do." LinkedIn is incredibly supportive. You'll only see people rooting for people. Like at Facebook, if somebody put that, they probably, bash you or whatever. So, but on LinkedIn, it's incredibly supportive. And what I tell people is think of branding yourself. Remove the word brand when you talk about personal
Mm.
branding. Remove the word bland. Remove the word bland, and replace it with insurance or investment, because that's what you're doing yourself for yourself when you invest in your brand. You're investing in yourself, and your brand
Yeah.
is what's going to get you speaking gigs. Your brand is going to get you to be a guest on podcasts. Your brand is going to get you better opportunities. Your title, your job, and salary isn't going to do that for you. I would tell anybody, even if you have a
Yeah.
great job and you have job security and you're making a ton of money, brand yourself. And LinkedIn is the best place to do it. And another good thing, if you don't want to worry about a
Yep.
website, don't worry about it. Just use LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point about the website because the beauty of LinkedIn is you are setting up. You can be very intentional with your page and with your links and with your descriptions and content on there, so that for a lot of people that would actually be a great starting point that you can do yourself, which is made by LinkedIn to be very user like a really easy user interface compared to going, okay, where do I start with a website?
Well, yeah, and also a quick tip for anybody listening, your LinkedIn profile should not be just a resume hub. Treat your profile like a website or treat it like an experience. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, that's
don't
good.
treat it just as a place to host your resume.
One of my favorite things I've heard about social media, which I mention him quite a lot because I like his content, but Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels. I remember him talking about how he failed at first when he went on social media and was scratching his head because he was putting, he comes from a direct sales sort of background. And for him, he was on, I think, Twitter when he was talking about this. But I feel like that the principle applies. Now, I have a question I want to ask you out of this, Curt. But I remember him talking about how he was trying to push his products and his engagement just fell through the floor, and he'd been really successful on other mediums, and this was his first foray into social media. And he had a chat with another guy who was really doing well, and he said, "What are you doing? I can't work it out." And the guy said, "Yeah, I've been watching. I can see what you're doing wrong. You're treating it like you're treating social media like you're going on there to to pitch products to people. And he said, what you need to think of it is as, going on, and whether it's Twitter, I think it applies for all, including LinkedIn. I'd love your thoughts though, is to actually go on and imagine it's like you're at a professional party. It's like you're at a social gathering. What would you do if you were at an event with all these people with cocktails and you're standing in a group? You would never just be pitching your product at people. You'd just be interacting with them, having a chat, talking with them. And the beauty of LinkedIn is it's in a professional setting, like you described. And then to view your personal page like it's your home. And it's like, that's where, when people come back to your home, that's where you can house, like you said, your website. You can house content that's going to introduce people to you who might potentially become clients and might work with you. And that always stuck with me as a really great sort of perspective to have on social media. What's your experience? Does that fit well with you? Do you disagree with that?
No, that's absolutely true. And I actually did a post on something similar where, because a lot of people don't know how to, I think I did this last week or the week before. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But the point is, a lot of people, they change their behavior on social media. I know I did for a while, and it wasn't intentional, but it being on there can feel a bit unnatural. So what I teach people is, well, this applies to your behavior on LinkedIn and your profile. If you or your profile were at a party, would you be engaging? Would you be standoffish? Would you be serious? Would you be funny? How would
Yeah.
you be? So think of the same thing when you're going back to the whole point about your profile. Look at your profile and ask yourself, how does my profile come across to a third party? Does it come across engaging and friendly and warm, or whatever? But anyways, back to your more specific question. Yes, I mean, look, the best thing to do is just share your knowledge for free.
Yeah.
You don't give away every secret, but just go on there and treat it social. Like, ask questions, get people involved. Just talk about what you do, establish yourself as an authority. And I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, which is why I coach it. But in a nutshell, yes, the friend you referred to is correct. You don't
Yeah.
want to just go on there and try to sell. And plus, also
Yes.
on that note, when you do promote your product or service,
Hmm.
you should promote the end result. That's why if
Yes.
you ever see a TV commercial for mattresses, you don't ever see, they don't talk about the springs or the mattress itself. No, nobody gives a shit. They put up images of clouds to give you the impression of softness. They show some dude or female waking up all refreshed and talking about a good night's sleep they had. They're talking about, the message they're trying to get across is the end result.
Yeah, that's so good. And just unpacking, and I think that's actually a great question for people, no matter the size of your company, no matter what you're doing, is what's the ultimate result you offer people and how can you focus on that? I wanted to ask you about content. So that's great that you've started talking about that. For those who are listening who are taking notes and going, okay, I need to, so if I'm going to do this personal investment, which I love, that's a great way to put it. I need to, I need to realize there's this oil field and no one's digging wells. There's only 2%. What have you found works most effectively for your clients as a sort of starting point to start making content, knowing that I've heard the same things? People go, but I can't, I hate being on video, and it's what, like, and some people are perfectionists. What have you found is really helpful for your clients to start producing content? Good.
Are you asking when I'm giving them advice, or when it comes to the kind of content I create?
Well, I think both. What do you create, and what advice do you give your clients to create?
For when they're just starting out, right?
Yeah.
Well, I just tell them the most important thing is just start. Like, for example, I repositioned myself a few months ago, but prior to that, for like a year and a half, I didn't really have a niche. I knew that if I forced it, it wouldn't come, because I was going back and forth. Do I want to brand myself as a chef or a wine and spirits guy? But it just didn't feel right. So what did I do? I just started posting content, sharing my knowledge about the business or management world. And so what kind of content am I posting since I repositioned myself? I just give advice for people starting out, and going back to what I just said, just start. That's the most important thing. You know, just start, and whenever you start posting, be consistent in whatever you do. If you're going to post 3 times a week, post 3 times a week. If it's going to be 5 times a week, post 5 times a week. If it's 8 a.m., stick to 8 a.m. If it's 7 a.m., stick to 7 a.m. Be
Yeah.
consistent in every way, including your subject matter. And so, yeah, but just start. You know, don't worry about the details right away. Progress over perfection. That's the single
Yeah. That's
best piece of
good.
advice I give. And then you can
Mm.
start working on niching down
Yeah.
and connecting, trying niching down and working on identifying your target audience more specifically.
Yeah, I agree. Progress over perfection. Ready, fire, aim. That's one of my favorite sort of phrases because I feel like particularly online, you've got to get ready. You've got to do, and then you got to start making progress. Do something. Be consistent, and then always be adjusting your aim based on the results and what you're doing. I love the Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V quote where he says, what is subjective is the quality of your content. It's going to be subjective. Some people will like one post, some people engage with others. It is subjective, and that's where we get perfectionistic, right? But he says what's not subjective is that you need to start now. And you have to be uh, publishing. That's not subjective. And so don't get caught up in the subjective quality of your posts and let it stop you from what objectively you have to do, which is really for anyone, particularly entrepreneurs, but really any company these days, in any form, and for personal investment for those who want to be a thought leader, or I think it's a great opportunity for those who are wanting to get promoted, is to just start now and be consistent. I think that's great advice, Curt.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, it's consistency is key. Think of a store. If you go to your, I don't know, your favorite bakery every morning to pick up a croissant or something, well, what if they don't serve the same food every day? What if their menu changes every day? One day they have croissants, one day they don't. What if the times of the store change? One day you go in at 8 a.m., they're open, the next day they're not. That's going to drive you nuts. So, you need to be consistent in that regard, in every aspect, because that's how people will come to depend on you and trust
Mm,
you.
yeah. Yeah, you're right. Well, this has been great advice. Let's jump in to Leadership Express. I've got a few more questions for you. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, what's a book that you've gifted to other people?
You know what? I haven't gifted a book to anybody in a long time. I don't know why. I just haven't. Oh wait, no, I gifted. Sorry, I gifted my two assistants the. I forget the name of the book. It's about the company Zappos. Zappos.
Yes, 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 yes.
By Tony.
Uh,
His last name I think is pronounced C. C. He passed away about 2 years ago, unfortunately.
yeah,
But
it's very sad.
that was a great
Delivering
book.
happiness.
What's that?
Delivering
Yeah, that's
happiness.
it.
Is that the
That's it.
one?
That's it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's
The
great. That's a great recommendation.
Yeah, and one of the best lessons I took out of it is just about developing culture, employee culture.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's some great ideas in that book around employee culture and how some really great ideas. Next question: what is a recent leadership lesson you've learned for the first time or been reminded of?
I would say, to be honest, I'm 51, and well, this is, I don't know if it's a leadership lesson, but the progress over perfection
Yeah.
that really just sank in about a year ago. Because I'm a Virgo, I'm a perfectionist. Everything has to be perfect before I do anything.
Yeah.
And I overanalyze, and for whatever reason, I just started letting it go. And I think somebody mentioned something to me, and I thought, well, let me try it. So that would be, that's not so much leadership, but that is a significant one I've learned, and that was just like I said, a year and a half. Well, it was in 2020, so a little bit less than 2 years ago.
Yeah. No,
But
that's great.
leadership, let me think of. really simplicity in giving direction. Not that I didn't know that before, but in my my current job, everybody that works for me is part-time and they work all over the states.
Yes.
So, when you don't have people in the same room, a message can get muddled very easily.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting, fascinating. Um, Thank you for sharing that. So next question, I guess, would be around any advice you've received that really stands out in your mind. So a great piece of advice you've received.
Whew, man, there's a lot. Why don't we come back to that one, because I want to, and I've received a lot of advice on LinkedIn because I've spent a lot of time on LinkedIn. Let
Yeah.
me well, the progress over perfection is one,
Yeah.
but um probably this wasn't advice. I kind of learned it, but I saw it based on a post somebody had. They have ADHD, which I realize I learned I now have. Well, I think I've always had it, and it, like, as the doctor confirmed when we went over the results of my test. This is like about a month and a half ago. Um, when I'm in a kitchen in a chaotic environment with too much going on and many things going on, that's redundant, I guess. I excel. When I have too much to do and not enough time, I excel. But when I'm working in the peace of my home office, I get distracted easy. It's hard for me to sit still. It's hard for me to focus. So I've had to. So one of the best lessons I've learned was, and this was something somebody when they told me the symptoms of ADHD, that's where I'm like, oh, that sounds like me. So I got checked, and I do have
Wow.
that, and a little bit of bipolar, minus the depression. I don't have that, thank God. And so really managing yourself. For example, I use an Apple Watch, and I don't remember to do this as much as I should, but set the timer for 30 minutes anytime I do a task, and then take a break.
Yeah.
Because I know myself, if I stay on a task for an hour, I start screwing around on YouTube. I don't know. Maybe I'll just, I don't know, like, oh, let me go take a shower, or let me go see what's on TV, or let me look out the window when there's no reason to, but I just want to look out there anyways because I'm distracted. So
Yeah.
when my mind starts wandering, that's when I know it's time to take a break. So really, to answer your question, understanding myself better and managing myself better.
Yeah, that's a great thought. What's a big struggle or problem that you see leaders, entrepreneurs, managers facing when it comes to their personal brand?
Well, the consistency is one. The other thing is, you've got to, first of all, you have to determine exactly. So you should be able to, what is the problem you're solving? Who is your target audience, and how do you do it? You've got to narrow that down clearly. Here, let me give you an example. Let's say I brand myself as a chef instructor, and I teach people how to cook. Well, I could say I teach people how to cook, but that's pretty broad. Well, what are you teaching them how to cook? Baking, pastry, Turkish food, Italian food, all food? That's too broad. You got to be specific. So let me break that down more. Let's say I'm a vegetarian chef and I teach people how to cook vegetarian food. Okay, we've got to narrow it down a bit more. Let's be even more specific. I'm a vegan chef and I teach people how to cook vegan food. You got to narrow it down even more. But how about if I'm a vegan chef that focuses on gluten-free vegan cuisine? Well, that's pretty specific. The ironic thing is most people, they don't niche down enough because they're afraid they won't get clients. But the ironic thing is if you're too broad and you're trying to appeal to too large of an audience, you're actually not going to get as good of engagement or leads or clients as if you pick a specific niche.
Yes.
Like Here's an example. Let's
Hmm.
use pet food. You ever see any of these people that are like nuts about their dog? I mean,
Yeah.
I love animals, don't get me wrong. But let's say I market pet food. Let's say I have a pet food company. Well, that's too broad. But have you ever heard of that company, BarkBox, I think it's called?
Yes.
I think it's called BarkBox. At any rate, they're a dog food company. But what they do is they cater to not just anybody, but dog enthusiasts, like people that just are nuts about their dog. And you can even get personalized
Mm.
like boxes of dog food, like the dog can't fucking read, but the people can. And they love that because they're nuts about their dog. So they're really, I mean, they even use like some of the language in their ads. They'll use like, oh, your dog is going to love this more than a million tummy scratches, because dogs like to have their tummy scratched. They've really niched down, and they've identified their target audience. And then the other thing is, you need to appear in the eyes of your target audience as one of their tribe. So here's another example to illustrate it more. Let's say I sell surfboards or surfing products. Let's say they're the best surfing products on earth. But if I look like, say, a Harvard professor, sound like a Harvard professor, and all my ads look like, they reek of Harvard professor, well, that's not going to get through to the target audience. But if I look like a surfer, I sound like a surfer, and my products are tailored to surfers, well, then I'm going to come across more as my target audience's tribe, so to speak. So in other words, they'll be able to relate to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yes.
Imagine if I don't know, Martha Stewart was, you know who that is, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you guys, and I don't know how big she is in Australia.
Yeah, heard of
Imagine
her.
if Harley Davidson started using her to market their motorcycles. They what? No. So to do a quick recap of all of that I just said, make sure that you have identified exactly what your niche is, and make sure that everything you do is tailored to your target audience, including the language you speak and how you deliver your content, how your content looks, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's good advice. Tailor your niche for your personal brand, your personal investment. Love that. Well, for those who want to find you, where can they find you online, Curt?
CurtSassak.net. That's CurtSassak.net. That's my website. I'm adding some more things to it, and then they can find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I do LinkedIn coaching, and I do free consultation calls if anybody needs. And
Great.
I just love helping people, and so if anybody even just has a question and they want to shoot me a DM and say, hey, I heard you on Jono's podcast, I had a question. Hey, sure, I'm happy to help.
Yeah, thank you. That's very generous. Well, I want to thank our listeners for tuning in. Hopefully, there'll be a bunch of you who are going to go and invest in your personal brand or that personal investment we talked about, which I really love that idea, personal insurance, through LinkedIn. And don't forget, for our listeners, I also have the Jono White Leadership Podcast and Leadership Question of the Day podcast, two other places where you can hear content about leadership. But I want to finish today by saying a massive thank you to Curt Sassak for coming on and being so generous with your time and sharing some of your story, and also sharing some wisdom about LinkedIn. It's been great to chat with you, Curt. Thanks so much.
Well, no, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast as much as I did. If you're joining us for the first time, don't forget to check out consultclarity.org. That's our website, consultclarity.org. We have so many free resources on there, including our 7 Questions on Leadership series. We've had more than 1,500 leaders from all over the world in all different roles, in different industries, answer these 7 questions on leadership, and leaders give these in-depth answers around how they spend their time, a book that's been significant for them. It's just a gold mine. It's completely free to access, so go to consultclarity.org and look for that. We'd also love to interview you about your leadership. I believe your experience, your life, your context means that you have advice on leadership that other leaders can learn from. Yes, you, if you're going, not me, well, no, I really believe you would have something to add. So if you're looking for a way to give back, it's completely free to get involved. And we would love to interview you through the 7 questions on leadership. You just go to consultclarity.org/7-questions-interest, or Google consultclarity.org 7 questions interest and fill out the form and get involved. We have a free resource on our website called the Leadership Survival Guide. It's a 57-page ebook, 10 world-class leaders giving their thoughts on leadership, and that's completely free. It's available on our homepage, consultclarity.org, right at the top, so make sure you go and get that and download it today. And we have a free daily email that you can subscribe to. We send this out to over 15,000 leaders from around the world. And it contains the highlights of content from our podcasts, our blogs, our books we're reading. It's got the best content, and it gives you exclusive, limited, early access to our masterclasses, workshops, new products, special offers. It's all for our subscribers. You can go to consultclarity.org/subscribe and join 15,000 other leaders. And my gift to you is to work really hard, particularly through the Leadership Conversations podcast. I have been blown away by the quality of the leaders, and I'm learning as much as anyone in doing these interviews. So I'm having a great time. And my gift to you is to keep lining up the best leaders I can to invest in your leadership. Your gift to me, if you're finding this helpful, there is something that you could do that would help us out massively. And that is to write a review and to leave a rating for our podcast or wherever you're watching or listening to this. I can't tell you how much that helps us out. Also, subscribe or follow. It really does make a difference in helping us to help more leaders become everything they're meant to be. Another thing that means a lot to me personally is when I see our community share our content. So if you do share this or any other piece of content on social media, then thank you, and please do that. And look for me, John O'White, or Clarity, and tag us in your post. Our team is always looking for posts to engage with from our community, and there's also a chance that we'll share your content to go beyond and share it with our followers. Last of all, you can check out my book. It's called Step Up or Step Out: How to Deal with Difficult People Even If You Hate Conflict. I wrote this book because 50% of the coaching sessions I have with leaders, this topic comes up again and again and again. And it's this idea of, how do I have this difficult conversation? How do I lead this person better when I'm finding them difficult? Or in some cases, you look and you say, I think I might be leading a difficult person. They're just quite difficult to lead, or I'm finding them quite difficult to lead. So there's a 3-step process that I unpack in Step Up or Step Out. And the amazing thing, and I've literally done this myself, and I've heard it anecdotally from other leaders as I've coached them, is that if you follow this process, you will see that person step up and change their behavior or make a decision, which is to step out some of the time. 95% of the time, people will step up or step out in just 4 weeks. And I stand by that. It's you have to read the book to understand, but I really do believe in it, and I've experienced it firsthand. It works. So you can go to Amazon, look up Step Up or Step Out John O'White, or store.consultclarity.org/book. Well, thank you so much for listening. We're going to be back with a new episode next time of the Leadership Conversations podcast. And I hope today has helped you to take another step towards becoming the leader you're meant to be. See you next time.